What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 5 of the Hoop Venue podcast. My name is Tyler, and as always, we're joined by my great friend Sean. We're about 2 weeks into the NBA season, I'm pretty sure, and teams have played 5-6 games. Lots to draw, lots to still overreact to from small sample sizes. Season's already been a circus, and one of the big stories has been the undefeated start of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I want to give the floor to Sean because he owes the state of Ohio a heartfelt apology on what he was saying about the Cavs before the season.
Yeah, I love how we're framing this as if I said they were going to be a lottery team. But, oh my dear beloved state of Ohio. Yeah, I was just flat out wrong about Cleveland. And I think it comes down to two things, honestly, when I look back on why I'm wrong on Cleveland. Maybe even three. One, I think I kind of underestimated the Kenny Atkinson hire. He's kind of surpassed all expectations. And they're not necessarily running a lot of the Golden State stuff, but I do think that the Golden State experience really, really helped Kenny Atkinson. Getting a coach under Steve Kerr, I mean, the amount of really high-level coach, especially offensively, that he's worked with throughout his career, like got to work with Bud in Atlanta, got to work with Steve Kerr for a few years. He was on that title staff, if I recall correctly. But he also sat next to Mike Brown, who was on that staff at the time as well. So I think I just completely dropped the ball at the Kenny hire. Second thing is, like, when I did my preseason power rankings, each player kind of gets a rating, think 2K, and it adds up to a team overall or whatever. And I think I projected Evan Mobley to have a really good year. I gave him the green arrow robe signifying that I think he's going to have, like, the breakout year. But that didn't reflect in the overall he got, if that makes sense. And he's been insane. And we were looking at some of the numbers off camera before maybe the last time we recorded, and the usage numbers are so different than what they've been in years past. Using him more as like a play initiator and things like that, which you said off camera like 15 minutes ago, it makes them so much more compatible, specifically him and Jared Allen, which kind of leads to another thing. I was like, I like these players individually. I like them all individually. I think Evan Mobley, if he's not the front runner for deploy right now, I mean, it's him or Chet. But you pair him next to Jared Allen, the offensive fit was always a little bit clunky, but using him as a play initiator now makes it way better offensively. And then the third real thing I kind of dropped the ball with, I guess, is Darius Garland is at the very least getting back into form. Like, he had a really, really good Knicks game a few games back, and we're kind of seeing the beneficiaries, I guess, of having him and Donovan Mitchell together offensively, where have, and this is something we talk about at playback, because I love how I could just, like, for all my takes, just go back to stuff we've said in the past. One of the best things about this Cavs team, it's actually been a trait they've always had, but they've never been consistently healthy, is for the most part at all times, you have 48 minutes of high-level playmaker, high-level shot creator, high-level defensive, like, anchor. And now for the first time, one, they're all healthy, and two, they're all playing really, really well, and the compatibility offensively is the best it's ever been. So, Cleveland, I apologize. Now, are they tier 1 contenders? It's kind of hard for me to, like, it's kind of hard to say they aren't. And I guess it's kind of weird to me to say that, considering I'm not going to say they are quite yet. But they're playing like it, man. They're playing like it. They play Milwaukee tonight at the time of this recording. And, I mean, the Bucks have been awful so far. Even their Sixers win, I said, it was just a drag to watch. But shout out to Cleveland. They've been awesome, and they're making me look foolish for, praising the Pacers so highly, and then kind of crapping on the Cavs all off season. But they've been amazing to start off the season. I know you want to go into them a little bit more.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with Cleveland, and they're fresh on my mind. Shout out D-Wade. You got there before I did. I watched every single offensive possession they played of the season yesterday. Or 2 days ago, my bad. 2 days ago, I watched every single offensive possession they've played, and that's because I'm working on a video on their offense. I wanted to look into
nice plug.
Why it's so different. Because usually for the last few years, even before Mitchell got there, their identity was a really good defense that could scrape together good enough offense to like be a 50-win threat. The year with Garland running the show, I think they had a top 3 defense. I know they had a top 3 defense either last year or the year before with Mitchell. They're always like a top 5-ish defense, and then they have a good enough offense to where they're like a home court playoff team. But this year, it's been about they have the number 1 offense. They have a more efficient offense than Boston this year. Or did they drop to 2?
Yeah, they dropped to 2.
They were number 1.
I mean, neck and neck.
They
Boston's
were number 1
123. They're 122.
I'll say they were number 1 before the Orlando game, so they must have dropped
a
peg. But so yeah, they're a top 2 offense with Boston. I mean, that's no small feat. And I wanted to look into why it's different, and I picked up on a few things. One, like you said, is using Mobley as a play initiator has been the biggest difference. Like if you look at the touches distribution, whereas last year Garland and Mitchell were 75 to 80 touches per game, now they're both like 55 to 60, and it's because there's more love to go around. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're running a motion style of offense that's like getting everyone touches. It's more so like they're being more deliberate with where they want their players handling the ball. So Mobley being a play initiator, it's not like, okay, he's going to dribble up and hand it off. It's we want Mobley initiating an action and getting into something. So one thing they like to do is those like guard screens or wing screens or ghost screens with Sam Merrill, George Niang, whoever the case may be. And with Mobley, that's an automatic mismatch problem because he's a 7-foot ball handler essentially. And it's like, how do you approach that? Because he's been aggressive as a slasher to the point where if his defender goes under that wing screen, he's going to attack the space and use his length and shoulder to like create something good at the rim. And if he doesn't make a shot at the rim, he's following his own miss 2-3 times. We saw that against Scotty Barnes. And that's like a hedge isn't really going to work because he's going to attack the space. If you switch, I mean, Mobley's going to destroy mismatches. Like that's one of the biggest things for him improving this year is that he's been abusing mismatches on switches. So you can't really go under. You can't switch. And then when they fight over the screen and stay glued, that guard screen just clears the middle of the floor. So now you have a Mobley isolation in the middle of the floor, which is still pretty good offense depending on the matchup. And so Mobley's been like a huge focal point for them. Say that type of play breaks down, then they can get into more open side pick and roll, spread pick and roll. Like you said, they have 2 elite pick and roll ball handlers who can hit the pull-up 3, get into the defense, make just about every pass. And it's
Who's a better playmaker? Put you on a spot.
Between Garland and Mitchell?
It's Garland by a hair, probably, right?
I would say Garland's the better playmaker because he's the better passer. Although it's tough because I think Mitchell demands more attention for sure, especially like as a slasher. And I think like Garland isn't a huge threat to get to the rim. He's more of like a floater area type of guy. Sure. So I do think Mitchell's more of like a break down the defense, but Garland's just such an advanced passer. And I don't want to take anything away from Mitchell because he's a pretty elite
underrated
passer. Doesn't get enough credit for that. But Garland is like a top 10 passer, whereas Mitchell's probably like top 20.
Before you finish your point, I do want to add on one last thing. Cleveland's playing noticeably faster this year too.
That was literally going to be my next point. And
that's 8th at pace this year. Yep. 24th at pace, or 22nd at pace last year. But then the year before that, they were dead last in pace the year before that. So they're playing way faster this year.
And that also goes in with the Mobley being a point center type thing because he can grab and go or he can run the offense. And a lot of Mobley's touches come in semi-transition where he can use his length and athleticism to create downhill pressure. So that's a good point because I was thinking the same thing. And that also coincides with them being an elite defensive team because they are 2nd in the league in steals. Points off of turnovers have been huge for them. They're an elite defensive rebounding team. So like I said, the grab and go, the outlets.
Yep.
And to go along with their big 4, they have a ton of different like ball handlers and shooters and passers that they can go to. Like we mentioned Dean Wade. He's a 6'9". I'm not gonna lie about his height. 6'9" guy.
7'4" wing.
6'9" wing who can shoot threes, and he's more of a defensive guy, but he can make the open 3 pretty consistently, not just in the corner, but from the wings up top. If they want more shooting, they go Sam Merrill, George Niang. If they want more ball handling, they go Karis LeVert, and Karis LeVert's another guy who's a criminally underrated passer, like legitimately great passer. They haven't even had Max Strus yet, but I think the biggest shocker has been Ty Jerome. Have you had a chance to watch Ty Jerome?
Ty Jerome is a player.
Dude, like I had no idea he was this effective. Like his floater, he might have a better floater than
nice.
Jokic. He might have a better floater than Jokic, and he's navigating tight spaces and keeping his dribble alive. He's making the big commit and drop and making beautiful passes. Like Ty Jerome is hooping. There's just when you the Cavs to me are like a tier 1 regular season team, and it's just when we get to the playoffs, I think there's one flaw in the roster that pushes like a team like OKC, a team like Boston to another echelon.
Sure.
And it goes back to what you said. It's like their biggest strength can also be a weakness, and it's their top 4, right? It's like there is a little bit of redundancy between Mitchell and Garland because both are pick and roll ball handlers, pull up shooters, playmakers. And then there's a little bit of redundancy between Mobley and Allen in that both are basically 5s. And the thing that's tough is that in the regular season, rotations are a lot longer, so you're facing a lot more bench units and things like that. So when you can stagger, what the Cavs do is they leave Garland and Allen together, and then they leave Mitchell and Mobley together. And they just have those pairings, and one of those pairings is on the floor for all 48 minutes. So essentially you have like 2 all-stars at all times on the court. An all-star big and an all-star guard, and it's just perfect. It works perfectly. Then you fill in the gaps with whatever role players. Problem is, in the playoffs, rotations get a lot shorter, like 8, 7, 9, whatever. Stars are playing 40 minutes a game instead of 34. And what ends up happening is that the 48 minutes of starter level play now turns into like, we need your home run 5-man lineup to basically do the heavy lifting.
And what's their home run 5-man lineup?
To me, the Cavs don't have that home run 5-man lineup. Like, I think they maybe are the team in the league that can I'd maybe still go Boston or OKC, but Cleveland's right there with them in terms of like how many different lineups can be elite. But they don't have the same ceiling as like put out your best 5 and produce a plus 20 net rating. I don't think their 5-man lineup has that, and it's because of those redundancies. And I think in order to pull out a tough 7-game series against a top-tier contender, that's kind of what it takes. And I think the most recent NBA champions reflect that. Like, Boston had their home run 5-man lineup with either Horford or Porzingis.
Yeah,
take your
starters.
Denver's 5-man lineup was like the best 5-man lineup I've ever
starters.
seen.
Yeah.
Golden State, same thing. You got Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, and then take your pick of Looney, Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton II, whatever they want to do. Milwaukee had their home run 5-man lineup with Tucker, and they could throw Giannis at the 5. The Lakers, we know their 5-man lineup. Toronto Raptors, Warriors. And it's like every team has a home run 5-man lineup. It's like you could argue is the best lineup in the NBA. And I think the Cavs are like the kings of staggering. And that's why they look so good in the regular season. Like, they'll probably finish the season with a number 2 or number 3 net rating.
Yeah.
And you know what? You know what that reminds me of? And I don't want to like hate on the Cavs because like obviously I'm pretty high on the Cavs and I love a lot of what they do. It kind of reminds me of the Jazz during the Mitchell and Gobert era. Like in the regular season, they would have like a +9, +10 net rating. And it would be like, yeah, this team is special. Like they would never lose minutes. They would stagger everything and just win every minute.
Yeah.
But then once the playoffs rolled around, they'd run into like teams that could scheme for their home run 5-man lineup. And then all of a sudden their starters are losing minutes. And it's like, okay, now what do? We don't have a counter. And the Cavs to me are missing that home run punch. And it's not necessarily that they need an upgrade at the 3 or they need an upgrade here. It's just
a redundancy.
It's the way the roster's put together. Yeah. And I don't necessarily want to say like they should blow it up because I think they're a really, really good team, especially with Mobley.
Tyler said it. You guys heard it. I the resident Cavs hater did not say it. Tyler did. I just wanted
I didn't say no. I don't want them to blow it up. I don't want them to blow it up. I like the team a lot. I love watching them. They're probably my favorite team to watch right now.
Hey.
But I'm just saying, I don't think they're in the tier 1 yet. I think they're
sure.
Okay, let me ask you this though. Are they the second best team in the East? Like, if the playoffs started right now, would they be your number 2 to make it out of the East?
Who wins the playoff series, Denver or New York?
I was just going to bring that up because they are the polar opposite in that the Knicks have no type of staggering capability, but they have a home run 5-man lineup.
They have a home run 5.
So it's like, what? Who wins that? I don't know.
I think I asked that question because I think as of right now with the Paolo injury and things like that, the playoffs somehow started November 3rd. those would be the like second and third best teams in the East.
Well, yeah, because it certainly isn't Milwaukee, which we're not going to talk about in this episode, but we got to talk about soon. Milwaukee.
I do have one final question.
Philly wouldn't have Embiid or Paul George if it started right now. So.
I do have one final question. Can you? I bet you probably could guess the three best teams in terms of defensive rating right now.
Defensive rating, OKC's number one for sure.
Yeah.
Golden State, are they still top three?
Yep, they're two.
And is it Phoenix?
Oh, no, it's Cleveland.
It's Cleveland. Okay, it's Cleveland. Damn, Cleveland's top
perfect.
three in offense and defense?
Cleveland is third in defensive rating, third in net rating, and actually all three of those teams are 1, 2, and 3 in net rating. But that goes perfectly with like the agenda for the 3 defensive player of the year candidates right now, in your opinion, and Draymond, Chet, and Evan Mobley. So,
you know, let's talk about the Warriors for a sec. Let's talk about Draymond, because the Warriors, I think, have shocked everyone, and they haven't had a tough schedule, so it's still like kind of out there as to whether or not this is a real 4-1 start. But they beat New Orleans back-to-back without Steph.
Yep.
And New Orleans, for all their flaws, all their injuries going on, they aren't a bottom-feeding team. They're not a throwaway, like you can just walk all over them. Yep. And what stood out to me in both of those New Orleans games is the fact that Draymond Green looked like prime Draymond Green defensively. Like the communication, the rotations, the ability to cut off Zion and absorb contact. Like Draymond literally looks like the best defender in the world candidate at age 35? I don't know how old he is. But Zion was like, I think he was 0 for 6 with Draymond on the court, in the half court, in one of those games. Like, didn't score a single point in the half court with Draymond in the game. And then, like, they just have so many guys that are, like, maybe not stars, but they do the little things. Like, I love Pajemski on both ends of just, like, a connective piece. Buddy Hields looked amazing. You got Trace Orluni at the 5. Kuminga coming off the bench now, I guess. But, like, with Steph, that's a team. How do you feel about the Warriors right now?
I'm not really surprised, and I don't want to say that in a way that like doesn't give them their props, because I think they do deserve it. Having the 4-1 start, I think for anybody, regardless of the schedule, is pretty impressive. But when saying that, their schedule's about to get brutal. Like, pull up their November schedule.
I saw it. The road. It's a road
Boston,
trip too.
At Cleveland, at OKC. Then you come back, Dallas, Memphis, at the Clippers. That 7-game stretch. Now, thankfully, Steph gets evaluated Sunday, I think. So tomorrow. So he's not going to play tonight against Houston, which is also going to be a fun game. But your hope is you get him back for, at least for that Boston game. But like I said, I'm really not surprised. And I guess, one, we knew this team was deep. Hell, I went as far as to say that I think this is the deepest team they've had in a while. Deeper than I think it's deeper than their title team in 22 in terms of functional role players. They have 13 dudes that not including Steph. They have 13 other guys that for 90% of the league can be 12-minute per night rotation players at bare minimum. And for that, I admire the roster construction, but I do wonder and worry, like, bro, not to revisit old stuff, but bro, put Lauri Markkanen on this team. Put the one guy that is maybe a better fit for what they do offensively than Steph, that just so happens to be an all-star caliber offensive player, and this team's a contender. I just can't buy into them being a true contender yet. Draymond, I put a tweet out, is arguably the smartest defender of all time. I mean, he's insane, doing it at this level in his career especially. Wiggins is hooping. I
don't know how I didn't mention Wiggins. He's been balling, man.
We caught the Clippers game together, and not like in person, obviously, but we watched some of that game at the same time. When he was running the point, because Steph got hurt. They're gonna get Anthony Melton back here soon too. So this thing really. I
was gonna say, can we shout out Lindy Waters?
Man, oh my god, Lindy Waters.
Yeah, dude, like they got some ballers, man. They got
Buddy
some
Hield
ballers.
is doing more than what Clay was doing for them last season on a way better contract.
Oh yeah, and
So this
also like I not to cut you off and not to like really get the people riled up, but like
Buddy Hield better than Clay
I
Thompson.
I had well, okay, I
Is
had
that
an
where you're going with?
intrusive thought. I had an intrusive thought, and
Okay.
it hasn't left my brain since. Is what Buddy Hield is doing right now. Does that have any sort of reflection on maybe what Clay did at his peak isn't as impressive as we thought it was? Maybe any movement shooter could have JJ Redick have done the same thing? I don't know. I don't know.
That's nasty. That's
I mean,
so
I will say the difference that Clay was a very, very good defender, so that like
Sure.
automatically just kind of changes things. But just the offensive side of things, like is Buddy Hield not doing exactly what Clay was doing at his peak? I mean,
I say Clay in
without-
his peak's a better playmaker, probably. In terms
Yeah,
of like,
for sure.
if you try to like put two on the ball when he comes off the pin down or whatever, he's like every time gonna hit that short
Yeah.
roll pocket to Draymond, just keeps their action.
Another
flowing.
thing I would like to say that is underrated about a prime Clay is his ability to actually put pressure on the rim in unique ways. Like it wasn't like a
Especially in
standstill.
2019, like
It
before
wasn't like a
the
standstill driver,
Achilles.
but like cuts, slipping screens,
Yep.
like curling off a pin down and taking two dribbles, getting to the rim. I think Clay doesn't get enough credit for what he was able to do outside of the three ball. But like in terms of just the off screen shooting and functioning the motion offense,
Sure.
like I think like Buddy Hield like is
not
kind of doing the
crazy.
same thing. Kind of
Yeah.
doing like the same thing.
And he's getting up at volume too. Like he's chucking shots right now.
He doesn't get enough credit for being one of the best shooters ever. Like, have you seen his numbers over the past few years? Like since entering the league, his 3-point numbers are crazy.
And they're always on volume.
Like 9 attempts a game.
Last season in Philly, 7 attempts. I mean, rounding up, 39%. Year before that, 7 attempts, 38%. Year before that, 9 attempts in Indiana, 43% rounding up. Like
That is
he's a career
crazy.
he's a career 40% 3-point shooter on 7.6 attempts.
That's what I'm saying. Like that is
He's
phenomenal.
31. Oh my god.
Wait, dude, we're off the rails right now. But like, do you remember when Buddy Hield's age got changed? Do you remember that?
No.
Okay, it was either like 2019 or 2020. Remember when the league said that they were cracking down on height and weight? Like height and weight, and it was like
Oh,
you have
yeah,
to
yeah,
give
yeah,
us
yeah.
accurate numbers. And Buddy Hield went up like 2 years in age, and no one talked about it. They were just lying about his age.
I remember that now.
That is
I
absurd.
remember watching his Final Four run at Oklahoma, and the dude's like 31. He's gonna be 32 in a month. That's insane.
Yeah, we're getting old, man. We're getting old. But
OKC, Gold State, they're fun. Yeah, that's gonna be a fun game. And even Houston, Jalen Green is kind of proving that. I mean, at least right now, 5 games. The Jalen Green's probably the ultimate. We need more sample size out of any player in the
Yeah.
league.
I agree.
But he's doing essentially what he did last year in that month of March.
Yeah,
Where he's I think this team is pretty decisively kind of going with Jalen Green over Sengun, even though they paid them both. I think in terms of from an offensive direction, it's more Jalen Green right now. Have you caught enough Houston yet?
yes. I agree. Like especially down the stretch of the Dallas game, I believe it was. Every
Yep.
single play ran through Jalen Green, and he had some really nice plays. Like he had a huge pull-up 3 to put them up 6 at the end of the shot clock, and he had like 2 back-to-back really tough contact finishes. I think we're seeing like an actualized version of Jalen Green in terms of being a 99th percentile athlete, and then pairing that with like craftiness as a ball handler, as a pull-up jump shooter, as a finisher. I just have one serious gripe with Jalen Green's game, and I don't know if it'll ever improve. And it's probably it's about the scoring. I think like people will point to like defense, passing, and I don't even necessarily view those as like big flaws for Jalen Green. I think he's a fine defender within their team.
He's
and
a
I
fine
think, like,
passer.
it
And
makes
even
him
then, you don't need
decently-
him to be this insane passer. You have Reed and
Right.
Amon coming up right next to him.
Exactly. Yeah. He just make the basic reads and the other guys will connect the offense for you. My problem is he has, I wouldn't even say 0. I would say negative in between game. Like he has zero in between scoring. He's like look at James Harden in Houston. It was rim or three, but that wasn't out of necessity. That was like, we want this as part of the scheme.
That was
We want
schematic,
rims.
yeah.
Yeah, we want rims and threes. Jalen Green is like rim or three, or I can't do anything else. Like, he doesn't have a floater. He doesn't have stop and pop midi. He doesn't have bump middies. And it's like, to me, that screams this guy is very schemable in the playoffs. Like, I think if we got into a playoff series, especially, I guess it depends on who you're facing, but like, Minnesota would play heavy drop and force him to win in the mid-range. And I just like don't see that being sustainable.
I probably trust like Jaden McDaniels with him too at the point of attack.
Yeah.
And not to cut you off because I know you're going to go through some other teams. But to that point, he's right now 3 for 15 on pull-up twos this season and 0 for 5 on floaters this season. But you look at the three and you look at rim efficiency, 61% finishing at the rim, and he's shooting 40% from three. 41% from three. 42.9 on
the game, by the way.
43% on catch and shoot and 39% on pull-ups from three, which let me check like last year's right quick. But
I know it was really good in March.
Yeah. So like but that's weird though, because I remember even when I was doing okay, I'm gonna give him some benefit of the doubt because I remember when I did my film breakdown on him, it was kind of the opposite in a weird way, where last year he shot 40% on mid-range twos, mid-range pull-up twos, and he took a lot of them. He took almost 200 pull-up twos in the regular season last season. And he shot 40% on them. So, and then last year he could have hit a pull-up three to save his life. He shot 33% on pull-up threes, and he took a lot of those too. So, I haven't watched enough Houston. I'm going to try to catch their Warriors game tonight because get a real look at both of them. But that's something I do want to say keep an eye on, because to your point, if what we're saying now is true, it's kind of the extreme opposite of what it was last year, honestly, I probably would live with that, the number from last year where it's 40% in the mid-range and, okay, maybe not 32% on pull-ups, 35% on pull-ups. It's a lot harder to scheme out in a playoff series than where it's, okay, I'm this elite pull-up three-point shooter, but I can't, like, do anything in the mid-range area. The floater point's absolutely spot on. He, like, doesn't have that at all.
I would say, what was his percentage on floaters last year?
26% on 42 attempts throughout the entire season.
And to me, that bothers me because I think the best counter a slasher can have is the floater.
Yeah, like, look at Ja. Perfect example.
Yeah, or look at Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
So
look at Trey,
that's
even,
what bothers
who's
me.
one of the worst at-rim finishers in the league, but has a floater.
Yeah. So what scares me about that is this shooting has to be sustainable for Jalen Green, because if it isn't, he's going to regress hard and he's going to be very inefficient, because like I think he gets to the line at a decent rate, he gets to the rim at a great rate, he finishes at the rim at a high level, and it's all dependent on whether or not that pull-up three is sustainable. Obviously not 43% or whatever he's shooting, but like at
38.
least 36, 37, 38. Because right now he's shooting 45.5% on twos. And the
he's
league average
60% at the rim, so that's like
the league average on twos is 53.4, so he's minus 8% on twos.
Yeah.
And I just that scares me, like, because I feel like 2-point scoring is like the ultimate. Like, you look at Shea, well, like Shea would be, I guess, the polar opposite of Jalen Green.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm out on Jalen Green, because like he's playing amazing. He's looking like an all-star. It's just I want to see a bigger sample of this pull-up three being real before I really like am confident in his game.
Yeah, like I said,
it's kind of how I feel.
Like I said, there's might not be any starting level player plus, if that makes sense, in the league that's more. No, we need 20 plus game sample size more than Jalen.
For sure.
Green. I mean, I guess maybe RJ Barrett too. He's like right in that category of no. We need
Did you
the
see
whole
his
year.
stat line last night?
RJ, no, I saw Grady Dick went insane.
RJ Barrett last night had 33 points and 12 assists.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I'm watching RJ Barrett. I'm watching him closely because we're not going to get into the Raptors yet, but we will be talking about them soon, I assume, because Grady Dick,
Yeah.
RJ Barrett, like they've got some stuff going on.
They throw Scotty
A
back in
team we do
there.
want to, yeah, a team we do want to talk about is Phoenix. I know you
Whew.
specifically want to talk about Phoenix. So what is it that's caught your eye with Phoenix and their hot start?
Yeah, I got so much crap. This is one of the teams that I got crap on for being kind of high on this heading into this season. That I feel the best about this. Got to get the good takes out every once in a while. And I interviewed my guy Sam Cooper from I think it's the Timeline Pod. I feel really really bad for botching the name, but I hope that's right. Really good Phoenix Suns pod. And I told him this. I said, the way I feel about Phoenix heading into this year, maybe not to this degree. I don't think I've told you this yet, so I'm curious your thoughts. The way I feel about the Phoenix team heading into this year is how I felt about Minnesota heading into last year. In terms of, I didn't like them in terms of their first year being currently constructed. So like Beal, Katie Book for year one, and Rudy, Cat, and year one. But heading into year two, I'm like, ooh, everybody's low on this team because of how the previous year went. But no, this team's good. This team's better than they were the year before. And I do have one massive problem with this team. And it's ironically similar to Cleveland in a way, where if Bradley Beal is your third best player, if we're going to be completely honest here, Tyus Jones, for how they play, is more important offensively than him. But you can't not close with Bradley Beal. So if they close with all four, okay, now you have a really, really bad defensive lineup in the clutch. And Tyus is taking touches away from Katie, from Book, from Brad. And defensively, their ceiling isn't that high. But holy cow oh my God, I can't believe I just said that in 2024. Ryan Dunn is a player. And I'm going to say this every single time. If he had 20% of the confidence he has right now, he's a top 10 player. Like, he's like, I mean, a top 10 pick.
I was going to say a top 10 player. That's a hot take.
That's a hot take. No, he's a top 10 pick in the draft. He is, I mean, maybe outside of Wemby, but I don't even know, man. From a pure defensive instinct standpoint, ability to guard 1 through 5, he's the best defensive prospect I've ever evaluated. And he's on this team with Bud, who has them moving the ball. Their player movement's awesome. And then Book and KD are able to each just go, okay, you want to drop 40 tonight? You have two of the best scorers on the planet. One last small nitpick that's kind of been the thing with them, at least for the past couple of years for sure since KD's gotten here. This team can't get to the rim. Like, they don't finish at the rim at all. It is mid-range jumper, pull-up three, or catch and shoot three, which I do think they're taking more of this year, but that's the Tyus Jones effect, who's a really good table setter, super efficient playmaker. Then you have another one of those coming off the bench for you. I do have some questions, like I said, about this team, but this team is better than I think they've gotten credit for. Their one loss is to the Lakers. They're on their opening night. Or they have two. No, that's their only loss. They beat the Clippers twice. They beat the Lakers. Who I guess, I don't know if you want to consider those teams tier 1 contenders or even like top of tier 2 level contenders. But I'm keeping an eye on Phoenix, Tyler. This team's really, really good. They have 2 fringe at worst top 10 players. I mean, this team's, they're a good team.
For sure. I think my biggest concern, I have 2 big concerns. One that you mentioned is kind of like they don't really get to the rim. And I think that's coupled with the fact that they don't have a rim running big. Like, how much differently would we talk about the Suns if they had, like, a legit lob threat 5? Or, like, even, like, an Ivica Zubac type of 5? Like, how much differently would we talk about the Suns? And it's just, like, I don't think Nurk's a bad player. I think a lot of people jump the gun on that and say, like, Nurk's not a starting level player. I don't think it's that. I think it's that he's not a great center for what they have on the floor. Especially the fact that he's a weaker defender and then not a vertical threat at all on either end. But I actually think the biggest concern with this team is what you touched on at the beginning, and that's like, it feels like Bradley Beal's a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. Like, it doesn't make sense. The fit just doesn't make sense. Like, it's not a talent thing. Like, Bradley Beal's an immensely talented scorer, good passer. great shooter. Like he can do a lot of things, but when you put him next to Booker and KD, like you said, I'd rather have Tyus Jones on the court. I'd rather have Grayson Allen on the court. I'd rather have a defender like Ryan Dunn on the court. And it's like you can only put out 5 people at once. So it goes back to what I said about the Cavs. They don't have a home run 5-man lineup because Bradley Beal doesn't fit into their 5-man, any of their great 5-man lineups.
In a perfect world, what would their 5-man lineup be? I think I have one. I'm curious what yours is.
You're saying like of their current roster, or
of
if I can add
roster?
People? Of the current roster, I would say probably Tyus, Booker, Dunn, KD, Nurk, or even instead of Nurk, their backup center. I can't think of his name. Iguodaro, is that
Oso?
His name?
Yeah,
Oso. Yeah, I'd probably go Oso at the 5 because I just think he's a better athlete than Nurk. Like I think he's raw, but I would rather have a better athlete at the 5 in that type of lineup. Ideally, you'd have like that same 4: Tyus, Booker, KD, Dunn, and then Rudy Gobert. But
now that's a championship contender. That's the best team in the league.
That's a home run 5-man. But yeah. I'm just concerned about the Beal fit and the fact that they don't have a legit athletic rim running 5. I think that's 2 holes that like you get into the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was another thing where like people are hyping them up and they get because they got blitzed in the Minnesota series. It was not even a remotely close sweep. It was like a 20-point average deficit. Yeah. And so, like, to me, that wouldn't shock me. Like, if they run into the Lakers, what the heck are they doing with Anthony Davis over a 7-game series?
Yeah.
And it's like, that scares me. That scares me a little bit.
What are they doing? I mean, what are they doing with Austin Reeves in a 7-game series?
Or, like, what are they doing against Chet Holmgren?
Yeah.
Like,
who's God forbid you have to play Jokic for a 7-game series.
Who's guarding Randall for them?
Yeah.
Like against a minute, like I don't know. I don't like how they match up with a lot of teams, but I think like over the course of an 82-game season, they're so talented and just very unique. They're a unique
Bud
team.
gives them such a high floor in the regular season.
I agree. Yeah, they have such a high floor, but I think they probably have the lowest ceiling of any of the Western Conference playoff teams. Besides, like of the big 7 that we keep talking about, like we had what not in order: OKC, Denver, Dallas, Minnesota. Memphis, LA, and then Phoenix was like our 7. I think all of the other 6 teams have a higher ceiling than Phoenix.
I think it's close between them and Memphis.
That's fair. I could see that. But again, what the heck are they doing?
Memphis has more compatibility, I think, if that makes sense, with their group that I think gives them the higher ceiling. And if we're talking again, never mind. I think Memphis clearly has a better ceiling because if you talk playoff basketball, Ja as the dude and be able to get to the rim and set up action for them, and then Desmond is the number 2. They're better playoff scorers, I think, at this stage than KD at this stage, where it's heavily reliant on, and their team makes more sense to them. Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, in terms of a series between the two, what in the world are they doing to approach Ja Morant as a slasher?
Oh, yeah, Ja's dropping 40 a game.
I was going to say, yeah, because Nurk is back on.
Ja's such a talented passer that another guy and maybe he does, but I don't think he gets enough credit for his passing.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, so I'm glad I was right. I mean, Nurkic a hedge and recover big. Ja's either going to go for 40 or he's going to get 20 and 20 a couple times in that series. Like, legitimately. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't want to sound low on Phoenix, but like I'd feel way better about them if they just like had, instead of Beal, just like a high level role guy. Like,
I think just we said that though. Like if there was any way they came to the conclusion that, Brad, for us to win, go be the greatest 6-man in the league has ever seen, and I feel better about them. Insert Grayson or insert Ryan Dunn to the starting 5 and slide Book to the 2, KD to the 3. Or, I mean, Ryan to the, regardless, right?
Yeah.
You feel a lot better about this team.
And I feel better about, like, KD and Dunn picking up the slack that Nurk lacks as a rim protector.
Yeah, KD on the back, both of them.
While we're talking about underrated qualities like Ja's passing, Kevin Durant's rim protection, man, he's a great rim protector. Honestly, Kevin Durant, for his entire career, has been just a criminally underrated defender in general. Like, his ability to switch, the way he can pick up ones and twos in space as, like, a 7-footer and then protect the rim. I think he lacks, like, awareness and, like the mental aspect. But that's why he looks so good in Golden State, because, like, Draymond can do all that for him. Just tell KD where to be, and he's going to be a really good defender. I just wanted to give a quick shout-out to KD.
And having KD and Ryan done together to kind of wrap this up, that makes Nurk's job so much easier as a hedge and recover big. Yeah. Because you maybe have pound for pound for wings, I guess, 2 elite wing like rim protectors on the back end.
And also, Book is a perfectly fine defender.
Yeah.
Like, he's
fine.
Yeah, he's just a perfectly... He
might even be better. Like, if you throw him with the lineup of those guys.
What I think is funny about Booker's defense is, like, I view him as, like, the most obviously average defender I've ever seen. Like, there's no weaknesses and no strengths. It's just like, he's just going to go out there and just do exactly what is expected of him and nothing more, nothing less. Yeah. And it's like, if you put him around a bunch of great defenders, that's awesome.
I think, well, there's a couple other teams that we got to, like, get to a little bit more quickly, I guess. You titled this section just stop overthinking talent, and I think everybody jumped the gun with specifically Minnesota, where, like I said, I'm in like a Lakers group chat or whatever, and the opening night, Lakers beat Minnesota. So I don't know why everybody gassed up Minnesota. This team's not good, guys. They ran into the team that's one of the biggest like weaknesses. The Lakers' strengths heavily go against the Timberwolves' weaknesses, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Give this team time, and Randall, ever since game one, has been amazing. Defensively, they still haven't kind of gone back to where they were last year, which is not even that I'm worried about, but it's something to keep an eye out on. They're 16th at defensive rating so far. They've played 5 games. But, I mean, Sacramento even, DeMar gives them I guess a higher floor in the regular season. They already had a pretty high regular season floor. And then New York even, like Cat had the 44-point burst against the Heat. You had a funny tweet about Bam talking about Defensive Player of the Year on that night. I know you wanted to touch on this part of the show for sure.
Yeah, I added this category this morning after I saw a tweet from I mentioned in our playback stream, the Sacramento Film Room, awesome Twitter follow.
Yeah.
They tweeted a screenshot from NBA.com of the best 5-man lineups through 5-6 games, so tiny sample, but the best 5-man lineups with over 30 minutes played. Number 1 is the Kings starting 5. Fox, Herter, Murray, DeRozan, Sabonis. The second best 5-man lineup is Brunson, Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns. And right away that makes me think, okay, we overthought, or not me, because, I'm Mr. Optimism with the trades. I made positive videos on every trade that happens because I'm Mr. Optimism. Got to please everybody. But, actually, though, I feel like everyone overthought, what it means to just become a significantly more talented team. Adding Cat as a 5 over guys like Robinson and Hartenstein, which, can we revisit, dude, shout out Isaiah Hartenstein, but there was legitimately people on Twitter saying that he was a better offensive player than Karl Anthony Towns.
What's wrong with your timeline?
Absolutely. It was a whole discussion for the whole day. They were saying, well, Hartenstein's ability to understand screening angles and serve as a passing hub. Have you seen Cat score the ball?
Is Cat a bad passer?
He's not a bad passer. I would say
he's not Hartenstein level, obviously.
Yeah, but have they seen Cat score the ball?
And he's an all-star scorer.
He's the way he's playing out of the post, and then they called Cat soft. He's bullying. Did you see him bullying Isaiah Stewart? He was bullying Isaiah Stewart in the post. And so, Cat is just an amazing scorer, provides unique spacing at the 5 for that whole lineup. And like we said, they have a home run 5-man lineup, and it's already been proven. That 5-man unit through, 5 games has an 129 offensive rating.
Yeah.
Nasty work. And so, the same thing with the Kings. Everyone overthought, how does DeRozan fit? It was more about how does DeRozan fit and not about, hey, DeRozan's a lot better than Harrison Barnes.
Yeah.
Why was that not the discussion? Why was that not the talking point? And The Randall one I can kind of understand because like Cat I would say is probably a better player than Randall and maybe a little bit of a better fit. But Randall has bought in completely, and I can confidently say that he's playing by far the best basketball of his career right now. I'm looking at it right now on Basketball Reference. He's shooting 62.5% on twos. His previous career high was when he was on the Lakers, 57.5. So he's more than 5% better than his peak on twos. He's getting to the line at about the same rate. His turnovers are down and his assists are up. He's averaging 23 a game. He's shooting 57% from three. Obviously, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But like he's making threes right now. 72% true shooting. Through 5 games.
Yeah.
I've been thoroughly impressed with Randall, and especially like the shot diet. He hasn't taken a single long two the whole season.
I want to add this onto the conversation really, really quickly. Because I think with Julius Randle, I get it can in certain matchups. So again, we get to a Lakers matchup, or essentially, I do have a big question about this team, the Timberwolves in particular. We've talked about this, where if they have to face an elite drop big in a playoff series, because they saw 2 really, really good ones in the Dallas series, they kind of changed some things. But the thing about Randle that's actually going to help them if they ran it back with Dallas, for example, and we kind of saw when they played the other night, is that Randall gives them legitimately another advantage creator where Cat, that's not Cat necessarily, or at least to the extent that Randall could be in a 7-game playoff series against Minnesota now, against a Dallas. Now against a Lakers where you have 3 guys that kind of can match the physicality of Randall, then it's a little bit different and it can be nuked entirely. But that's something that Randall, and day one, I was heavy. No, this trade rocks for the Knicks. I hate it for Minnesota. But I think literally 2 days later, I'm like, wait a second. You have a real advantage creator that could get to the rim for them. And he's also a really solid playmaker. They have a bunch of solid playmakers on this team now. And again, like you said, just don't overthink the town. We haven't even seen Dante play well yet. Like, Dante DiVincenzo's not really played well so far this season. Nas is just doing what Nas Reed does. And then going to New York is kind of, I think, a perfect fit for both sides. First off, Cat's been a superstar so far. Not literally a superstar, but like he's been great to start off the season.
Yes. And
adding, I mean, do you want to say, is he the best? He's probably the best shooting big in the league. I don't want to, I'm like thinking about this before I say it so I don't look like an idiot in 2 weeks.
I think he's the best 3-point shooting big, but I think if you include mid-range, Jokic and Embiid probably raise a very good case.
Yes. Best 3-point shooting big in the league. And that's important for kind of the heliocentric Brunson ball that we're just going to dub it in New York, where Brunson, a lot of their offense is initiated off of Brunson driving and kicking or being able to play with space. And Cat does that for him. So Bridges has kind of played well. Did you want to add on something to the Brunson ball thing?
I wanted to add something onto the shooting big thing. Who's a better 3-point shooter between Cat and Markkanen?
Markkanen. The off-screen ability, it's
Dude, the movement, and
he's the second best movement shooter in the league, and number 1 Steph.
One thing that bothers me about Cat as a shooter is that it feels like he only shoots threes when it's a play ran for him to shoot a 3.
Yes, he has no like gunner in him.
There's no like natural like within the flow of the offense threes. It's always like set action to get Cat a 3.
Yes.
And I don't know why. Like I wish he would shoot like 7 or 8 a game.
You said that.
Yeah, like because he's only attempting like 2 or 3 a game this year. Yeah, like get some damn threes up.
4.1 3-point attempts for 75 possessions, which is not career low, but it's his lowest since 2019, where he took 5.
Yeah. And I also wanted to add on to your point about Randall being an advantage creator. I think that really stood out against Denver last night specifically because if you watch back the Denver series, Towns was scoring a lot on mismatches and post-ups and things like that. Like the Nuggets kept switching Jamal onto him, and he was just abusing Jamal with like just turning and shooting over him.
A little too comfortably switching
Yeah,
too.
But what stood out to me about those switches is like they would get Jamal Murray on an island and be okay with it, kind of just leave him be. Whereas every time Randall touched the ball against a mismatch in their last game, all 5 eyes were on Randall. All or 10 eyes, 5 heads. All 5 heads were turned.
I said
towards Randall.
Like I was.
You know what I meant? Yeah, they're all just one-eyed defense. No, all 5 people were looking at Randall. Yeah, exactly. Every time Randall had the ball near the basket, all eyes were on him, and I just think that, and I also wanted to ask you on that point of being such a big mismatch hunter, advantage creator. Do you think? I was thinking about this earlier. Is OKC a good or a bad matchup for Minnesota? Because I think it's kind of the best of both worlds, where it's Chet's an elite drop big, and so right away I'm thinking that's kind of scary for their offense.
I'm worried about Ant in that series, but
Julius. But I was gonna say, and also defensively, you're gonna be they can space Gobert probably better than any team in the league.
Yeah.
So it's maybe they'll be a little weaker defensively.
And
but
they're gonna
Randall,
space them in a spot where Rudy can't even help on the back line because they're gonna run just 5 slot action that entire series.
Yeah, but who in the world guards Randall? It would have to be Caruso or Dort.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say. For Minnesota defensively, and for Anthony Edwards, I'm scared for Minnesota. But from a Randall perspective, that's one of the I don't know if it's one of the better matchups, but I feel good about it for Randall.
And it's Dort and Caruso can both guard up, but Randall's a tough cover for even guys his size.
Yeah.
So
now here's the question: do you start off with one of those, but heavily shade over almost where I'm going to send you into Chet and live with the result type of thing?
Or do you put Hartenstein on him and start Hartenstein?
I mean, if you do that, then which actually they probably should do. That's a wrap.
I don't know, dude. There's a lot to think. I'm excited for the playoffs, man. Let's just skip the rest of the 76 games and talk about the playoffs. But unless you have anything else to add, I'm good. I think we could wrap this up. We've kind of hit on every point.
I do want to really briefly shout out. I want to shout out Washington and Brooklyn. I've watched Brooklyn enough at least now. Cam Thomas is balling.
Yep. Same with Dennis Schroeder.
I think I saw. Oh my God, Dennis is going crazy right now. I forget who it was, but I saw a clip of somebody. It might have been the numbers on the board guys or whatever. And they're I'm at the point where every time Cam Thomas shoots, I think it's going in, and I'm kind of getting there too.
Yeah, who did tweet that? I did. I saw that exact same tweet. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we talked about this off camera, but that little shimmy baseline fade he hit against Denver a couple games back was filthy. And I was in a game where he did not shoot the ball well. So I'll be excited to kind of look at them a little bit more here soon. And then Washington, I said this heading into the season. I haven't watched them a lot, admittedly. But from a young core standpoint, they have a pretty underrated young core. Bub Carrington's nice. I really, really liked him. Sarr, I think is going to eventually turn out to be a really, really good player. I was even a Keyshawn George guy. He's balled out so far, or at least played decently well. And then Bilal Coulibaly, that's kind of the face of their young core. He is. Yeah. If I said Ryan Dunn's the best defensive prospect I've looked at, and Bilal Coulibaly might be too, from a he can do almost anything defensively, and I mean the offensive game is just blossomed here in year 2. And then, I mean, outside of those guys, I think we've kind of...
I keep seeing Bilal drawing the Kawhi comps because of the two-way capability, the length, the mid-range game. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I mean, I think outside of... Yeah, I think that's... Sucks that Orlando with Paulo got hurt, but Jalen Suggs. I know what Tyler's take is, so I'm not going to spoil it, but...
Yeah, I have a take about Jalen Suggs. I have a take about Jalen Suggs, and it got even stronger after their last game against Cleveland. Paolo was out, and Suggs was mismatch hunting and dropped 28. Yeah.
And 28, 8, and 7. Jalen Suggs last 4 games, 21, 7, and 3, 25, 5, and 7, 17, 6, and 5, 28, 8, and 7. But he's doing this while being the best defensive playmaker from the guard spot in terms of wrecking havoc and just being a stocks machine. Like, Caruso's nice. I mean, Caruso's obviously elite, but is Caruso from a defensive playmaking standpoint? I don't think Caruso's better than Suggs.
From a defensive playmaking standpoint, I don't know. That's tough. I mean, those are the two.
Those are the two. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Dude, I just looked it up. Jalen Suggs on the season is averaging 19 points, 5.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 2.3 steals, 0.8 blocks, shooting 38% from 3 on 8 attempts a game, 91% from the free throw line on 4 attempts a game. Like, dude, what are we doing? Is this not an all-star? Is that not an all-star?
That's all-star numbers. I'm
That's
really
an all-star
quickly
player.
trying to pull up.
I'm not huge on like the Basketball Reference advanced stats and stuff, but I'm looking at it now. 6.3 box plus minus, 62% true shooting.
The thing that I'm curious to see as the season kind of progresses, especially now that there's no Paulo, I want to see what their pick and roll offense looks like with them. He's going to get a lot more touches, but so far he hasn't been a good pick and roll usage player. So far this season, he's in the 33rd percentile in terms of pick and roll scoring efficiency, and in terms of like including pass outs, he's in the 25th percentile. But I haven't watched any of these possessions, so who knows what the reasoning is. But I am curious now with an extended absence for Paulo. You kind of have to give him the touches and see, especially with the contract he just got too. You have to see, but he's been awesome, and I'm glad we were able to shout him out before we wrapped up.
And one more thing on Jalen Suggs. A lot of people have compared Orlando to Boston, like as a young Boston. Like you have like a lot of people say like Paolo and Franz are Tatum and Brown, Suggs is Derek White, and like of those three, I don't agree with that. First off, but it's just like something that a lot of people say.
Sure.
Of those three, I think Suggs becoming maybe even an upgraded version of Derek White is like the most likely of those three options.
Yeah.
Paolo obviously looked like Paolo was playing like an MVP before he got hurt. Franz hasn't had I feel like Franz hasn't had the best start to the season.
Is it too early to get your take off?
It is still too early. Franz last 3 games, 7 points, 7 points, 17 points.
I will say this in terms of I do think we're gonna see without Paulo. We're gonna see who the true what the true hierarchy is.
Yeah,
like, if it's apparent that throughout this stretch that no, Jalen Suggs is our initiator and our number two, our real number 2, then that's gonna be really, really interesting.
Think about this for a sec. This is just something interesting I was looking at again. Suggs is shooting better from 2, 3, and getting to the line more than Wagner. And scoring is probably Suggs' like weakest trait, right? Would you say like out of like the big 3, like defense, playmaking, scoring is probably Suggs' like third trait. Like, yeah, man, that's a special player. Like they got something serious with Jalen Suggs.
Everybody reacted to the contract, say, "Ooh, overpay." I'm like, no, that's about right. He's a really good player.
Yeah, Jalen Suggs is a nasty player, but any last thoughts or
no? Miami, we'll talk about you one day.
Yeah, our first. Shout out to everyone still here. This is our first episode that was less than an hour long. So
we're still 2 minutes away from hitting it.
Yeah, but first thing I want to shout out is our playback. We started a playback.tv/hoop venue. We're going to start doing live games, like watch parties, reactions, conversations, debates, whatever the case may be, just going back and forth with chat. We're going to start doing those pretty regularly, not like a set schedule, but I'll announce on Twitter or on my YouTube community tab, whatever, whenever we're doing those. Speaking of which, follow us both on Twitter. Mine is at Tyler Britton _. His is at Sean _Davis without the S at the end. So Sean _Davy. Follow Hoop Venue on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You know the drill. Appreciate everyone for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you guys in episode 6.